Hi, this is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next we're going to talk about what went on in the comic market last week. Stay tuned. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. Tonight you're getting glasses variant of me. I was wearing my contacts a little too much over the last day. So just eyes didn't want them anymore, so glasses it is. And so if you've watched my last few market videos, you know what I've been doing is that I've been tracking the weekly Heritage auction and a number of sales from that auction each week. I look at how those sales did compared to what my estimate is for what I thought those books would be selling for. Also, how they did compared to their prior high sales within that grade. And what I'm hoping to get from that is that the comic market, comic prices have really been moving a lot lately. So I'm trying to get something that shows me if everything is kind of staying the same, if we're seeing any big changes, any drops in what I would normally expect the prices to be, or any big increases above what I was expecting the prices to be. And so just something to try to help kind of work my way through this kind of uncharted territory we're in right now with the comic market. And after that, I'm going to talk about some recent high sales that were from that auction, kind of some notable things that I saw from that. So first, kind of for that sales data, I've been doing this for 3 weeks now, so this is the third week. The first week I priced 175 books, second week I priced 183 books, and then this week I priced 166 books. And I've seen very consistent results for where those prices were ending with respect to my estimate. So the first 2 weeks, 53% were above my estimate and 47% were below. This week, 52% were above my estimate and 48% were below. So for all intents and purposes, that is exactly the same. Those are effectively the same numbers. And then what I also looked at was how many of those results that were above were 20% or more above my estimate. First week it was 20%, second week it was 27%, and this week it was 28%. So maybe trending up, on some of these higher sales. And then I also looked at the number of sales that sold for 20% or more less than what I estimated. First week it was 13%. Second week, it increased some to 17%, and then this last week we're back down to 13%. So we are seeing still some consistent high sales that have been beating out the estimates that I've been creating for these books, and the percent below has been pretty consistent. We saw a little bump last week, but back down to what it was 2 weeks ago. Now, the last thing that I've been tracking that I thought would be useful is the percent of new high sales. So, for example, last week I priced 183 books, and 51% of those books set new highs. And then this week I priced, like I said, 166 books, and 49% were new highs. So this is still a very significant percentage of those books that are hitting brand new highs. If this was something where we were seeing a weak market, I would expect those numbers to be much, much lower. Very few new highs, new records being set for these books. All right, so now let's talk about some trends that I saw with these books. Now, for these new highs, I did see some trends, and Marvel was extremely strong this week. And last week I had mentioned how strong I was seeing with a lot of Disney sales. This week Marvel was very strong. I'm not going to list them all because like I said, there were 49% out of 166. There were over 80 of these. But I did see 10 Amazing Spider-Man books, including AF-15, 50, 101, 122, 300, and 315. So a lot of the big key issues. Including some at the end there with Venom, which may be related to the Carnage trailer that dropped. And then just a few other notable ones that I wanted to call out were there were 4 Fantastic Four books, issues 2, 6, 48, and 50, as well as Silver Surfer 1 and 4. So a lot of hype, it seems, still on kind of like the cosmic Fantastic Four type books. And then X-Men seem to be heating up maybe a little bit again. So I saw 6 X-Men books, issues 1, 7, 9, 12, 50, and 129. Now, there were also some big Golden Age sales. So I saw a lot of records in Timely books, including from Marvel Mystery Comics, All Winners, and Submariner Comics. And there were a few pre-code books as well. Blue Bolt 112, All Top 16, which is awesome Matt Baker cover. Out of This World 1, which is a great robot cover. And there was a little DC, not much though. There was a record in Aquaman 1, Sea Devils 1, Lobo 1, and Hawkman 4. Now, obviously I didn't list everything because I didn't want to be listing off, 80 different books, but really Marvel was extremely strong this week, because I'll almost include Timely with Marvel. And DC, not very strong, but a few records. All right, now let's get into the notable high sales that I saw last week during the Heritage Auction. And the first one is one I have to talk about. I actually talked about it a little bit on Vancouver Comic Junkies live show, and this was Strange Tales number 169 in a CGC 9.8 that sold for $21,600, and this is a massive record. This is a book from 1973, so this is a Bronze Age book. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this book is I think this is one that it's kind of a cautionary warning I kind of want to give with this, is that this is the first appearance of Brother Voodoo, and he is rumored or confirmed, whatever it might be, to be in the next Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness movie. And I had this book estimated at $7,500, and this was 190% above that estimate. The prior high sale was just $4,365 in 2019, so this is an increase of about 400% since then. And there was a $4,200 sale in April of 2020, so over 400% in approximately a year. Now, there had been a 9.0 sale on March 26th for $1,150, and that's why I had boosted my estimate up to $7,500. Now, I don't ever want to make it seem like I'm trying to make someone feel bad about a purchase or anything like that, because I don't know their reasoning for it. For all I know, this is the person that is playing the role in that movie, and they wanted that book more than anything, and they decided they would pay whatever it would take to get it. But if this is kind of like a speculation type purchase, I think you really need to be cautious with that. I realize that this book has a low number of copies on the census in a 9.8 compared to some other Bronze Age books. There are 11 9.8s with only 1,030 total copies of this book graded. But what I like to do, and this is one of the things we talked about on Vancouver Comic Junkies show, is that I like to look at comparable books that you say could have gotten similar Bronze Age keys for around the same price. And the 3 that I have looked at were Special Marvel Edition 15, so the first appearance of Shang-Chi. Now, there are a lot more 9.8s of this one. There are 98 9.8s, but there are 2,952 copies that are universal copies that are graded. And this book sold for $14,400 recently. But this character has his own movie coming out this year, already has a trailer. This other character is a secondary character in the Doctor Strange movie that we don't really know what they're going to be doing with in the future. Then you've got Tomb of Dracula number 10, first appearance of Blade. There are 47 9.8s out of 2,944 total copies, and it had a high sale recently of $25,000. And this is a very popular character, has had multiple movies, has a movie dedicated to that character coming out at some point in the future. Then we've got Amazing Spider-Man number 129. And this one has 143 9.8s with 11,668 Blue Label copies. It had a recent high sale of $33,600. And this is just one of the most important Bronze Age books, and if not one of the most important Marvel books of all time in terms of first appearances. And so you've got these other books that are in 9.8s that have either movies behind them or extremely important characters, and then you've got this character who is a secondary character in someone else's movie, and it's selling for as much or more. And so I'm not saying that book might not be worth that much in the future, say if Marvel decides to expand on that character, but be cautious with some of this speculation stuff. This is similar to what I talked about with that Strange Tales 159 a couple weeks ago, where it's that first appearance of Val that's being played by Elaine, from Seinfeld, and how that book spiked hundreds of percent. I think it went from a $500 book to a $4,000 book overnight. And those are the types of things that I think people are going to potentially be burned by, and just need to be cautious with. That I realize that it can be exciting to go for some of these books when, you think there's spec on it, but just, a level of caution with them. Now the next one, I wanted to talk about a Golden Age book, and this is All Winners, number 14 in a CGC 7.0 that sold for $4,800. It's a book from 1944. This is a record in that grade. And this is a Golden Age Captain America Alex Schomburg cover. And I had estimated the price at $3,000, so this was 60% above my estimate. And the prior high was just $1,315 all the way back in 2012. But this is an increase of 200% in 9 years, which, outside of the ridiculousness of the recent comic market and the prices, that is a very respectable gain in the price of a comic. But a 5.5 sold in August of last year for $2,225. So that's kind of where I came up with my estimate for this book. Now, these World War II Alex Schomburg covers are always going to be expensive. You will generally have to pay at least $1,000 for almost any grade of one of those books. For example, a 2.0 sold for $1,320 in January of this year. But if you want a more affordable Alex Schomburg cover, you do have some options. And so try looking into books that were released after 1945. So these are going to be the non-World War II type books. So I'm going to pop a meme that I saw recently about this, and it describes this exactly. Like the World War II, Captain America fighting Nazis, that kind of thing, are the ones that are in really high demand and are going to have a lot of people looking for them. But they seem to be foiling a lot of bank robberies in later years, and so those ones aren't in as much demand. And an example of that is All Winners 18, which is a bank robbery, and a CGC 2.5 sold for $384 in March of 2020, which, a book from the mid-40s, for $384, Alex Schomburg, can't really go wrong with that. A book that, if you were buying that book for one of these World War II covers, you're going to be paying multiple thousands of dollars in those types of grades, whereas here, you're either, $384 for a CGC 2.5. I mean, that's a great price. I would recommend picking up a book like that all day. But yeah, so there are plenty of other options out there. Just recommend, if you're looking for something that's a little more affordable, go after 1945. All right, this next one, it stings me a little bit because I sold a copy of this book recently before this big increase in prices started happening. And this is Fantastic Four number 2 in a 6.0. Sold for $5,760, which is a record in that grade. This is a book from 1962. It's the first appearance of the Skrulls, and I had an estimate of $4,500. This was 28% above my estimate, and the prior high sale was just $3,120, but that was all the way back in 2019. So I estimated this using other sales that have happened recently in grades around it. And a 5.0 sold for $3,550 in March. A 4.5 though sold for $3,360 on April 19th, and a 4.0 though sold the exact same day as this one for $3,301. And I'm guessing that's what may have really influenced the price of this book. Now, Secret Invasion, which is basically the Skrulls, is coming to the MCU. It's been announced. We've seen the title, everything, and we've seen the Skrulls in multiple Marvel movies, so we know they're here. They were the basis for the Captain Marvel movie. They also had a little teaser at the end of WandaVision, and I've mentioned this before when I was talking about Journey into Mystery number 85, the first appearance of Loki, And it really seems like people are starting to spec earlier and earlier. So before we had WandaVision happen, you really didn't have the prices of those books moving until you were deep into that show. That's when people started buying up those books. Whereas with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, people started buying the books a little earlier, and we've already seen the prices of the first appearance of Loki just skyrocket, and we aren't even at that show yet. So people are buying these books earlier, and I think that's what's happening here with the Skrulls as well. In addition to the fact that we know there's a Fantastic Four movie, and they are generally tied to the Fantastic Four. Now, this is an extremely expensive book in all grades. A 0.5 sold for over $1,000 recently. So for an alternative, I might try going for something that's one of these more recent spec buys. So New Avengers number 40, there is a first and second print. Go for 9/8 in these. These are very modern books. Try to get 9/8. The second print is much more expensive of this. This is the first appearance, and I'm going to see if I get it pronounced right, of Varanki. She is the Skrull Queen, and definitely could be a spec on the Secret Invasion storyline. Now, the other book that you could go after is just Secret Invasion number 1. The title is almost exactly the same font, format, everything as what Marvel is using for the title of the show. So it might just be that simple. Go get a 9/8 of that book. They're around $200 to $250 right now. It's not a really expensive thing to get into, and so that might be the safest way to go. It's the name of the show. It's a easy buy with respect to that type of speculation. So that could be a much more affordable alternative to trying to go after something like Fantastic Four number 2. All right, this next book, this one has not gotten very much love from collectors for a long time. And this is Iron Man and Submariner number 1. And it was a CGC 9.4 that sold for $1,920, and this was a big record in this grade. It's a book from 1968, and the reason it's never really gotten that much, kind of like I said, love from collectors, is that it's a one-shot book. This is the only issue of that run, because after that, it splits into Iron Man number 1 and Submariner number 1, and those two are much more desirable books, largely because they both had long runs that occurred after them. There were many issues in those runs. But I think this is an example of these other books getting much more expensive, especially if you're talking about their first appearances. Fantastic Four number 4 for Submariner's first Silver Age appearance, and Tales of Suspense 39 for Iron Man's first appearance. Very expensive books. And there have been rumors popping up that it could be that Submariner is the villain that is going to be in the next Black Panther movie. I have no idea if there's any truth behind that, but right now it doesn't take too much in terms of rumors to move prices on these books. But I had estimated the price of this book at $1,100, and so it sold at $1,920, or 75% above my estimate. And the prior record was $919 just from February 25th, and a year ago this was a $600 book. So this is a jump of over 100% in just 2.5 months. That is a big jump. Now, I wouldn't necessarily go for an alternative book if you're interested in this one. Mid-grades are still very affordable. 7.0 sold for $300 on May 5th. A 5.5 sold for $176 on April 8th. So for just a few $100s, you can get a nice mid-grade copy of this book. It is obviously starting to get more expensive in these higher grades, though. So mid-grade copies, though, are still pretty affordable. Now, you don't have to go for this book. You could still go for Iron Man number 1 or Submariner number 1. Now, Iron Man 1 is getting pricey. I mean, I sold a 5.0 last week for $750. So even in mid-grades, Iron Man number 1 is getting very pricey. It is an awesome cover. I love that cover. Now, Submariner number 1, I've shown a copy of this one as well. I have a 9.2 white page copy of this book, and I also really like that cover. But that one is much more affordable still in kind of the mid-grades. A 5.0 sold on May 8th for $350, and a 7.0 sold for $684 on May 10th. But a 7.5 sold for $1,080 on May 3rd. So there are starting to be some of these bigger jumps in the higher mid-grades, and the high-grade copies are hitting multiple thousands of dollars now when you're starting to get into the 9s. I think Submariner 1 is a great book to pick up. Personally, I would get that one over Iron Man and Submariner number 1. Iron Man 1, there's been a lot of move on that book. I don't know how much more there's going to be in it in the near term. So if I was looking to pick up a book right now, it would probably be Submariner number 1. Alright, now this last book, I was excited when I saw this one pop up on my high sales list for this week. Love this cover. This is X-Men number 50 in a CGC 9.2, sold for $1,200, and this is a big record. This is a book from 1968. This book does have some, like key components to it. Second appearance of Polaris, first cover appearance of Polaris. It is an incredible Jim Steranko cover, but it is also the introduction of the new X-Men title format. So I'll show, here's a picture of X-Men number 49, where you can see the X-Men there. It's basically almost the same as since issue number 1, and here back to issue 50. You can see how they've changed the title, the font and everything for that title. In my opinion, for how desirable this book has been, I mean, almost everybody wants a copy of this book. It is just such a beautiful cover. I think it's been chronically cheap, so it's about time that this book went up in price. And I had estimated this as a $900 book, and so this was 33% above my estimate with a sale of $1,200. And the prior high was $867, and that was just on March 1st, so that was pretty recently. And this was only a $425 book on January 19th, and a year ago, this book was ranging from $300 to $375. So it's gone up by 3 to 4 times now in the last years. So it is definitely starting to get some respect as a key X-Men book to pick up. Now, like I said, there are some, like key components for this one, but I really think this is largely a cover buy for this book. I mean, it's a beautiful cover. I think that's what's drawing most people to it. And I definitely wouldn't recommend any alternatives for that. So when you're talking about something that's largely a cover buy, it's for that art. That's what a lot of people are buying that book for. And so if it's too expensive in these higher grades, just go for a mid to low grade copy. Those lower to mid grade copies are very affordable right now. Anywhere from $100 to $300 in a mid grade, and if you get down into the really low grades, you could easily get them for $100, especially raw. At least up until now, it wasn't worthwhile to grade those lower grade books, so you likely aren't going to find many that are in the 2, 3, 4 range. They're typically going to be kept raw at that stage. So in addition to the sales data, those are the 5 books that I wanted to talk about. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this, and I will see you in the next video.